Well, hello, everyone. I want to welcome you once again to another live edition of the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Network on GoingSoloMedia.com. And of course, I am your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert. And I want to thank you for joining us on our veteran-centric broadcast this evening. Before we get into the show, as I do each show, for those of you that watch, we've got two wonderful sponsors that sponsor our show and help us keep going. And I just have to talk about them. First, Quest Jewelers from Merrifield, Virginia. Quest Fine Jewelers, you see their website there, questjewelers.com. I tell you guys each show, call Pete, call Juan, tell them you saw the show. Take a look at what they have, whether you're looking for something that's on the website or you want something specially made, custom made for that special someone. They can definitely do it for you, as my wife can attest to. She has a number of pieces that they have made for us. So you got to check them out, questjewelers.com. I also want to thank Nationwide IT Services. NIS is a service disabled veteran-owned small business located in Fairfax, Virginia. It's owned by retired Army Warrant Officer C.K. Park. He and his crew have a wide variety of talent on staff for all of your business needs, whether you may need something in the realm of training, IT security, program management, whatever you need for your business, he and his folks can provide it to you. And, again, CK not only sponsors our show, but he supports the hiring of veterans. And I have to give him credit because about almost half of his employee workforce are veterans. So we want to thank both of our great sponsors for helping us stay on the air so that we can bring you the information we bring you. So tonight's guest, I've got something a little interesting. And for those of you that have been watching the show, you'll know we don't get as many female veterans on here as we do the males. So I'm always definitely happy to get another female veteran on. And my guest tonight is Christy Crandall. And Christy is a 22-year-old Army vet. I'm 22-year-old. I'm sorry. Boy, I made you young, didn't I?
22.
She is a 22-year retired Army veteran. And I think, Christy, did you retire as a major?
I did, yes.
Okay. And you were a human resource officer most of your career?
I was 12 years as an AG officer, primarily S1. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I remember my fond days as a first sergeant of a headquarters company where I had our S1, in my company as well. And that was always interesting.
Best people in the world.
Well, Christy also has a bachelor's degree from the University of Tampa. And I know you're working on your graduate degree right now as well. But I want to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I have to ask you, and I usually ask most of my veterans this, but why the Army? How did you get started and why the Army?
Well, as a young child, my father was in the military. He was an MP. And as a young child, I would listen to his stories about all the fun stuff that he did and the places he went. And it just seemed like a lucrative career. And I thought, I would just go for a few years.
Yeah.
But after a few years, I was having a good time. I was doing my thing. And then it just kept growing and growing. And next thing you know, I'm at like 18 years looking towards retirement. And I'm like, wow, how did I get here?
Yeah. I can understand that because, I've told my listeners when I first joined, it was more out of curiosity because my father, who was in, but he was killed on an Army training accident when I was very young. So I went in kind of out of curiosity and enlisted for 4 years. And my goodness, didn't know whether I was going to stay or not, just like you. And 21 years later, there I was. So, we kind of have a similar story here as to how we got going. So I'm assuming that you finished your undergraduate degree before you went in, or did you do it?
No. So I started out, as a private.
And okay.
I did.
All right.
I joined and I was a helicopter mechanic.
Some of the best
years of my life. And had a really good time. I got tired of flying and I wanted to try something new. So 4 years into it, I was like, I'm going to re-enlist. I'm going to stick around. And I re-enlisted for X-ray tech.
Oh, man.
So I was doing that and having a good time going places. And one day I'm like, I'm kind of tired of seeing broken bones and, blood and all that stuff. I want to do something different. So that year, I think it was the first year they did the Hip Pocket Green to Gold Scholarship Program, and where they were giving those scholarships to generals on Army bases. And Lieutenant General Riley, at the time, I think he was a 1-star, maybe 2-star. He was my general. And I remember I was like, oh, I'm going to try for this. Maybe I'll get it. I don't know. Maybe not, but why not? And so I went to 7 different boards before the final board in front of the general. And like Soldier of the Month and Soldier of the Quarter and whatever. And I remember clear as day, the last board I went to, which was the deciding factor, there was 42 applicants. There was little me. He had 5 scholarships he could have given out.
Oh my
God! When I walked into that building, there was a long line of Rangers and Special Forces and all these people and my little X-ray tech uniform. No, actually, I was in Class A's. And I looked and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get this. There's no way. And so I went in for my turn, and they asked me a series of questions. Nothing I had studied before. It wasn't like, can you shoot a back azimuth? It was more like, why do you want to be an officer?
Yeah.
And I spoke from the heart. And the final question was from the sergeant major. And he asked, what's the most effective skill that you can have? And I just looked at him, and without hesitation, I just knew, but I told him it's communication. Communication is key in being anybody in the military, from the lowest private up to the highest general. You have to be able to communicate your plan of action in order to have a successful mission. Yeah. And I never forget that answer. And then he was like, I guess nobody else said that. But I got a phone call a couple days later, a week later, from their S1, G1, saying congratulations. And I was working in the X-ray clinic at the time, and I had a patient, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was so excited. And he only chose 2 of us out of the 5 scholarships he had. He didn't even use all 5. Wow. So I chose University of Tampa. I chose military history, and studied that because it was an opportunity to study anything that I could. I wanted to, and I love history. And because I knew I would have a career after. So it didn't really matter what I studied. So I loved history. And the Army saw fit to make me an AG officer because it wasn't what I asked for, but they said, hey, you're going to be an AG officer. So I went the green to gold route and ROTC. And in the midst of all that, had a child, which was very difficult being in college, single mom. This was not the time where you got paid from the VA a whole lot. I think I got like $500 a month or something. Yeah. So I was working, and I was in school and trying to raise a baby, and I made it. I would look at my son every day, and I would say, I need to persevere because this is my son's future. It's not just my future. I could have quit and said, hey, this is too hard, but things are only hard if you make them hard. And so went back in the Army and spent the last 12 years as an AG officer. Oh. Yeah. And done everything from S1 to working at the WTU, working as an S3. I culminated as an S3 as a major. Okay. And then was looking at Lieutenant Colonel and thinking about getting promoted, and they had some ideas for me to go to Kuwait, and I'm like, I'm not. But then I had 4 kids. I'm not leaving my kids. I think I'm just gonna retire. It's 22 years. It's time. So I did, and I look back and I think I made the best decision possible. So that's kind of my story.
Well, that's interesting. I remember the Green to Gold program. In my first enlistment, I was actually in a fire direction center for
Oh,
field
wow.
artillery, the FDCs.
Love field artillery.
And thought about going to OCS because I already had my 2-year degree when I enlisted.
Yeah.
But then, I filled out everything. I sent it to my branch. Took all the screening, took the PT test. I mean, the whole 9 yards to go to officer school. And my branch came back and said, well, I gave them my preferences and they said, look, you've got one of the most shortage jobs we have in the Army, especially among officers, fire direction officers. So if you're going to go to officer school, that's where you're going.
Yeah.
And I was glad they told me up front because I decided not to go.
Oh.
My first sergeant already given me some good advice, and he told me one night out in the middle of a night move, he said, Holbert, if you're going to stay in, you need to get the heck out of this because this will kill you. I had those decisions, like you were looking at, and I ended up finishing my career after a first sergeant as an S3 ops NCO, much like you spent. How did you like your time in operations in the S3?
I loved it. My mentor for S3 he was a lieutenant colonel at the time. Actually, he was a major when I was a major, and then he got promoted. Was Steve Carpenter, who is now the commanding general of out in 7th Army.
Oh.
So he was my mentor, a great individual. And this man would give like talks to the group and really teach people things, how to long range plan, how to plan effectively, and everything. And he was so motivational that I carry words that he spoke 15 years ago, 12 years ago. I carry them still and still say them to this day. He used to say something that was distinguish yourself in the valley. And everyone would look at him and say, what? What valley? And he'd say, the valley's not a location.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
Distinguish yourself. But he taught me everything. When I worked in the S3, it wasn't a WTU, so it was a little bit different. We didn't plan for like rotational stuff. I was planning more for WTU events, things that supported the soldiers, the wounded warriors. And that was very, very gratifying.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of Purple Heart folks, saw a lot of people with missing limbs and things coming back from war. And it was kind of like serendipity that they put me there where I was able to help people that had suffered so much.
Yeah.
Because that ultimately is what I love to do, is to help others, serve others.
I think, I think there's two things you just said that kind of, I think we get from military service. Number one, normally the majority of us always have at least one or two really excellent mentors that you remember the rest of your life. Yes. And I think it's all part of that camaraderie that we develop. The other thing is, what you were talking about, seeing all these soldiers and wanting to help. I had an experience at the VA hospital out in DC a little while back, and just to go out there and see some of those, even some of the older veterans, Vietnam veterans, some of the younger veterans, I was fortunate. I came back from combat not too scarred up. And I consider myself blessed every day. But to see those veterans like that and, want to help, you want to do something. So I think that's been a recurring theme for a number of my veteran guests on the show, is talking about how they want to do something to help their fellow veterans or, to help others. So, it's not unusual to hear you say that.
Yeah. I think one thing, I know now I'm in the film industry, but, I was working at the WTU Warrior Transition Unit over in Fort Hood. In fact, I was there when they had the shooting, but we had Hollywood come out. I guess it's like the PAO for Hollywood, the guy, the public affairs officer that would work with the movies and do suggestions on how to, how to properly wear the uniform and those sort of things. And he came out with an entourage, and he spoke to the soldiers that had injuries. And he's like, you can have a career in the movie industry because we spend so much time on special effects and making people look like they're missing a limb. Why not come out and be a part of this world? Yeah. And it's so gratifying. And that was what sparked my interest in the film business. I was like, I would really, really love to pursue that, but yeah, there was another uplifting message. So one of my other mentors, Phil Smith, was in the Pentagon when the plane crashed into it. And he was my boss at First Perscom in Germany. And through the years, he's always been a great supporter. He was severely burned, severely injured in that atrocity. And I really, really respect what these people go through. Yeah. And it's in the news for a minute. You get your friends and family give you a lot of, affirmation, attention, but give it 5 years down the road, where are you then? And it's really hard that you have to live the rest of your life with this disability, or whatever affliction that you suffer from. So I just think it's a matter of inspiration and finding yourself and seeing how you can use this to your advantage.
That's a good point.
Film industry, or another industry.
Well, that's a good point, especially when you talking about the film industry, because I'll be sitting and watching a movie with my wife, and they'll have military people on the movie, and I'll just look at my wife and I'll say, no. How is this guy wearing Army captain's bar? And he's got, Navy stripes on his sleeve, and, or I'm sitting there watching some general who has, something upside down on it. And I tell her, that drives me crazy, everybody military. And I tell my wife, I said, oh my gosh, man, don't they use people to consultants to help them with this?
They do. It's just, I don't know if it's a matter of the budget of that particular film or what, but some movies, they use them and they use them effectively, and other ones they don't. The very first set I was ever on, I was actually in the military. It was called Wild America. And with I can't think of his first name. Oh, that's okay. But at any rate, they had an advisor there, and it was a hospital scene. I was working in the hospital, so we all got to be there, and to make sure that everybody in the uniform was properly, had the right rank, the right direction. It was perfect. And then I see other films, like you said, where I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. It's on the other side. It's backwards. And you get so distracted and it just eats you up that you're like, oh, I don't like this film.
I saw a perfect example of that on an episode of MASH. Yeah. And they put captain's bars on radar so he could go into one of the O clubs. And he was sitting in there drinking a grape knee-high. And this other officer was sitting there with, with the two surgeons, Hawkeye and Pierce. Yeah. And we were just looking at radar, and they said, wait a minute. He finally asked them, says, wait a minute, what is he doing in here? And I remember Hawkeye telling him, you've heard of Sergeant Major? He said, well, yeah. He said, well, this is a new rank they're experimenting with. It's called Corporal Captain. And, the Army's trying to see how it goes. And the guy goes, well, I don't like it. And he looks at Pierce and he goes, put down a no vote for that one. It was just the hilarity of it.
Oh, that's great.
And that's what you think of when you see this. Well, I tell you what, Christy, we're going to take just a short break here. Sure. And when we come back on the other side, I want to talk to you about your career in the film industry and find out a little bit more about what you're doing. So for the audience out there, we'll be right back after this message from our great sponsors. All right, welcome back, everyone. And you've been listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner on the goingsolomedia.com. And I'm your host, retired Army First Sergeant. And we're speaking tonight with retired Army veteran Christy Crandall. And the first half of the show, we were talking a little bit about her military experiences. But Christy, you mentioned something before we went to the break that, you've now going into the motion picture industry, and from what I understand, have done a little bit of acting as well. So why don't you share that? How did you get into that? And I know that you've already made, one movie, and you're working on your second one. So why don't you share a little bit of that with us?
Sure. So my father was, after he was in the military, he became like a photographer. And he was an artist and very creative. And my stepmother was as well. And just phenomenal people. They taught me a lot when I was growing up. So I kind of had this connection with, the art industry. And I remember, as I mentioned before, where the film industry folks had passed by and talked to some folks at the WTU. And I was like kind of intrigued at that point. But I still had a few years before I was going to retire. When I did retire, I retired out of Fort Stewart, Georgia, which is Savannah. Yeah. And Savannah is huge in the film industry.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's like a little Hollywood. A lot of films, you should look them up. Tons and tons and tons of films have been made there. It offered quite a few different things and opportunities for filmmakers. So I started out as background. I started out saying, I want to, be like the person in the corner and just kind of get a feel for the film industry. Yeah. That's drinking the coffee in the background or walking around or doing whatever.
Yeah.
And I was scared. I was shaking in my shoes. I didn't know the first set I went to. And the first set I went to was called Siren. And it was a horror. And I didn't know what to do.
Was that the mermaid? The mermaid series?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was a scary movie.
Okay.
So I didn't know the lingo. I didn't know anything. So I got myself through that. I tripped and fell in one of the scenes accidentally, and they loved that. They're like, "Oh my gosh!" And I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna keep that." Okay. But from there, I did about 35 different films as background, different sets, I'd say. Like I've been to the vice principal set a number of times, so I count each one of those individually. Detour, Live by Night, it just goes on and on. All these different, The Do-Over with Adam Sandler, Live by Night was Ben Affleck. And just being like somebody in the background. I was a hospital patient for the Adam Sandler movie.
Okay.
And after a while, I got so used to what I was supposed to do. I got good at what I was supposed to do, but I got tired of it, because I wanted to be behind the camera. I want to be part of the action. I want to be the one with the little headset, I get to talk.
Yeah.
And I just thought it would be an interesting change. So I met a woman named Simone Norsworthy, and she was looking for an executive producer. And I said, I'm in. And we made My Brother's Keeper. And that film, this woman taught me everything that I needed to know about the film industry in a matter of like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And of course, you can always learn, but, and expand. But she taught me quite a bit. My Brother's Keeper went on to win a number of film festivals. It went as far as Cannes Film Festival in France.
Okay.
Not competitive, but, it was pretty exciting. So that was 2016.
Well, what was that about? I mean, just give us a brief synopsis of what it was about.
Yeah, it's set in the 1800s. And it's about two boys that become friends against all odds. One is a slave and one is a slave owner. But they're like, they would call him master. He was like the child of the slave owner. And they became friends over the Bible. And he taught him to read. And over time, then there was a fire, the house burned down, slavery ended. And over time, the master, the slave owner's child, grew up. and got himself into all kinds of different problems and troubles and whatnot. And in the end, the story is that as he's in jail for something atrocious he had done, a man shows up, and this man is a pastor, a preacher.
Yeah.
He shows up and he's singing a song that they had sung together, and
Oh,
he saves them.
wow.
Kind of ends with that. It's just a beautiful, beautiful story. Absolutely loved it, and had a really good time working with people on set at that one film. From there, I went on to do a number of films, different positions. I've even been a boom operator. I've been a producer. I've been an AD. I've been just everything. And
Jack of all trades, so to speak.
yeah, but that's how you learn, is by
Yeah.
doing each thing, getting your hands dirty, and actually being willing to work.
Well, it's the same concept in the military. I'm sure you remember. You do things in the military you'd never do anywhere else.
Exactly.
And you learn so much. So yeah, I'm sure you were used to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And people really, it's the whole integrity thing and strength and, a lot of different assets that I learned and values that I learned from the military that I brought further on in life.
Yeah.
That people were always like, reach out and say, well, Christy's good. We need her. I'm like, okay. So I would go on different sets, and we would win little film festivals. They're all shorts, primarily shorts.
Yeah.
Did a number of those. I worked on a film that went to theaters called The Divorce Party. I was the production coordinator for that. That was very rewarding, just because it was like my biggest film set I had actually worked on as a viable member.
Yeah.
That was 2018, I believe, 17. And then through the years, I did more and more and more. 2020, I got divorced, and I was here in San Antonio when that happened. And I kind of took a hiatus for a couple of years, took some time off. I'm like, hey, I'm going to spend some time with my kids. And I'm just recently getting back into film. And, I did like a voiceover for someone to help them out. And I did some other acting in another one called Lady Lawman to help out. But this one I'm now working on, Into the Gravel Pit, which is a horror, psychological thriller.
That's kind of my favorite genre too. So
it's great. The storyline is phenomenal. And I came on as a producer, a production coordinator. And right now I've been sort of promoted to executive producer, done a lot of work. It's a low budget film. But that's okay. Like a lot of films that come out of Hollywood come out with a budget of like $500,000.
Look at Halloween back in 1978. That's a prime example.
Expensive stuff.
Yeah, Halloween, when he made Halloween in 1978, that was pretty low budget.
Oh, really?
Yes. I mean, my God. They would use a leaf blower to blow leaves across, and then they'd rake them up and reuse them. And and I'm trying to remember, but Donald Pleasance, who they got to play Dr. Loomis, they got him for, I think they only paid him a couple $100,000 to do that movie. The budget for that movie altogether was less than $750,000. And to look at what it became from that. And you know what? I think all that was part of the, part of the director. And, he also wrote the theme song himself for that movie, that Halloween music.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
He wrote that with one other guy. I mean, it was so low budget that when it came out and it took off like it did, it was like, oh my gosh. So, you're right. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you spend. It's the quality of the work
spot on
that you're putting out that's going to make the difference. So who knows, you can, for those of you watching the show, you can see it on the screen, intothegravelpit.com. You can go there and take a look so that you see what Christy's working on and have an idea to look for it. But yeah, this could be something that you never know where it'll go depending on the quality. So
this is the great news behind it. Okay. So we are very low budget.
yeah.
We're estimating about $30,000 to make it.
Wow.
Now, how is that even possible? A lot of people will ask, how do you do that? You do a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do you can hire locations, you can hire a crafty, you can hire caterer, you can hire all these different individuals, or Christy can do it. And that's kind of where we're at. I'm working with two phenomenal people. The director, Colin Bressler is working. And Patricia Robinson, she's our hair and makeup, also co-producer. She's phenomenal. She's working super hard as well. So it's just a matter of a collaboration of the three of us pulling this together. And, the great news is that actors come at a huge price.
Yeah.
Unless they love your script, unless they love your story and they can really feel it and be in it and be in the moment and say, that script is for me. This script is so well written and so well done that I've got Lisa Wilcox from Nightmare on Elm Street coming out to be in it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. The name sounds familiar. I'm just trying to put
Alice in series 4. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Don't you have I thought at one point, didn't you have someone that was in one of the Pinhead movies, the characters?
Yes, that's my next statement, was that Paul Taylor, Pinhead from Hellraiser.
Hellraiser, yes.
They're coming out to play the mother and father role. Wow. And we're using, creatively, we're using some local talent for the lead actors that are kind of up and coming people. So we've got Samantha Mackley, we've got Riley Mason, Rodriguez, sorry. And we've got Chris Dawkins or Mikael Dawkins. And oh my gosh, they are very talented, young, raw actors that I just want to see them skyrocket. And watching Mikael's acting the other day while we were filming, I was blown away. Chip White is in it. I was blown away by his acting as well, because the way that the screenwriter did the work, people can really absorb and feel that character and be it. And we're doing so well. Just getting our way through it. So we are still looking for investors.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you would share with us the dime version of what the movie's about.
Oh, sure. Okay. I can't give out too many details.
Yeah, no, just what you can.
3 young adults get together for a last ride together. Yeah. And then they're going to part in life. And that's kind of I can't think of the movie. Well, they get together and then they go out and they do some things that they shouldn't be doing, get themselves in some trouble. And then in the end, I can't tell you the end. They just have a good, wild night. And in the end, somebody dies.
Well, I guess my curiosity is what makes it part of the thriller or horror genre?
The death scenes in there, the way it's done, the pretenses under which it's done, the murder, and it's pretty gory.
Okay.
So, but it's written like you can't take your eyes off the script. I want to read it, and I've read it like 7 times already, and I'll read it and I'll find something new each time, and I get all excited. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. There's a young boy named Joey that loves acting, loves to sing, loves to be a part of the film world, has never had an opportunity to actually do anything. And I was able to cast him. So he was in tears of disbelief when his parents told him, "Hey, you got the role." So
Oh,
stuff like that is like, I feel like I'm helping him. I'm
yeah,
getting to places,
yeah.
and this young kiddo is gonna go off in life and be able to look back and say, I did that, and maybe even do more.
Hey,
Um,
you just never know. You might have be the one that got him started on the red carpet later on in his
you
career.
never know.
Yeah, I mean, so it sounds like you're really, really, really excited about your second career, and you
Yeah.
know that sounds really great. I mean, so what does your future look like from here? What do you have planned as you move forward?
Well, I'll say this: you never know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Yeah,
So it has to happen now. Whatever you're doing, whatever you believe in, make it happen. Move your own mountains, because no one's going to move them for you.
yeah.
And moving forward, it's kind of like it's a decision process. I do have some other films that I'm looking into being
Hmm.
involved in. Actually, three, maybe three. One I'm not sure about. Um, but I just want to keep pushing forward. And one of them is called Pretty Big Girl.
Hmm.
Different genre. Um, it's kind of a Christian-based film,
Yeah.
and it is a story of a. This is one of the ones that I want to work on.
Hmm.
So it's a story of a young lady who is absolutely beautiful, but she carries some weight.
Yeah.
And with that society, as we look at people, we judge too much, too
Yeah.
harshly. And so this girl has this low self-esteem, and she's seeing a therapist. And as you go through the movie and you watch the trailer of it, so we've only done a trailer so far, it really opens your eyes.
Hmm.
It really makes you feel and reminds us of our own longevity and our own just position in life,
Yeah.
you know. And she has some challenges as well, but that's something that I really want to put my heart into. We did a trailer a couple of years back. It's been 3 years now, and I'm just now being able to circle back to it. The woman that is the main actress, the writer, the producer of it, her name is Laura Ann Heaton Gray, and she is salt of the earth, great woman. I mean, I believe in this girl so much, and I really think that she's going places. And a lot of the stories kind of written around herself.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of my future there. There's also one called Blood Wine that I want to get involved in. That's going to be out of California. I'm from California, so it's out of Santa Rosa, Sonoma County area. And I got linked into that by one of my high school friends, Pete Stringfellow, who's a musician. He's done a number of pieces in the country music genre. And that's another horror. So I'm excited about that. So just, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep
Yeah.
going as long as God will let me go. And I'm just going to take day by day and just live it, because so many people sit and dream about doing stuff. Make your dreams come true. Only
Well, it
you can.
sounds like I mean, it sounds like you're just really, really excited about what you're doing. And, I mean, after having a really successful career in the military and now moving into the film industry, I'm sure you've got probably some pretty good insight and advice that you could share. So before we wrap it up, I just want to ask you, if you did have one thought that you would like to share with the audience, what would that be? What would you like to share?
You've only got one life. Live it. And you know what? When it's over, it's done. And whatever your belief system is for afterlife is personal. I get that.
Yeah.
But live it, and live it well, because when you are at the end of your road, you don't want to look back with regret. You
Yeah.
don't want to say, I wish I had. Live your life now. That's how I kind of get up. But for me, in the morning, I wake up and I'm inspired to get up because I have goals, and only you can set your goals. and only you can achieve them. So
Yeah.
I suffer from PTSD and I have my own issues as well. But I fight through those because I want to live, and I just hope everybody can embrace that concept and treat others kindly.
Yeah, that's well. I mean, that's good advice because I struggle with some of the same stuff myself. But the idea is to try and live the best quality of life that you can, while you've got it, because you never know, when it's going to be gone. Well, Christy, I got to tell you, I mean, it's been great to have you on the show to talk with, and it's been interesting to hear about what you're doing in the film industry, and in fact, maybe a little later down the road, we can have you come back on and share some more of what you've been doing. That would really be great.
I'd love
So,
to.
yeah, I mean, so I will definitely, we'll keep in touch and, possibly get you to come back on and you can share some more of the work that you've been doing. So I want to thank you so much for your service. Thank you for taking the time to share your experiences, on the show and with our audience. And just say thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, great. All right, and for those of you out there in our audience, as you know, we usually will provide some additional information for our veterans and our veteran families. We have a program out there called United Through Reading. They have a book for the military child as part of the 2023 Operation Storytime. And there's the website there. The interesting thing is you can go on there and they have a book already selected for this year. And what they're doing is they're providing a way for military families to do a verbal reading of that book for their children. So for those of you that are deployed, whatever the situation may be, this is a way for you to share a book with your child. So I encourage you to take a look at the website. It's unitedthroughreading.org/Operation Storytime. You'll also find it on the VA website as well. So if you go to the va.gov, you're going to find it on their happenings website as well. We encourage you to take a look at it. I want to thank you for joining us again this evening on another live edition of the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. Don't forget, veterans out there, you're never alone. You don't have to live it alone. You don't have to go through it alone. If you need help, reach out. Our numbers are on the website, on the media website, on my show website. Reach out for help. You don't have to do it by yourself. There's no reason to. Ask for help. Thank you for your information. If you want to continue to send us more information, you can reach me at literaryvet@gmail.com. We love to get your comments and suggestions, so please continue to do so. Veterans, thank you for your service, and we hope to see you on our next show.